Welcome to Social Work 636 Online. This is the overview for the course, what the expectations are, a few hints. Note that there are several videos that come each week. This is the first for this particular week. This is found in Module 1. There'll be two others, I believe, for Module 1. So as we move along, there'll be lots and lots and lots of material for you. All right, so what is the course about? Well, basically, we are here to teach you about organizations. The idea is that you as a social worker will spend most of your career working in organizations, and therefore it's critical you understand them as much as possible. There's sort of three things you want to get out of this class. One of them is to understand what organizations do and why they do it. The second one is to teach you about the issue of management and leadership, because the reality is that you as a social work clinician are in a fine place to move up and throughout a hierarchy within the organization. So you need some preparation for that. How do you be a good leader? How do you make the social work organization a healthy place for you and for your clients? And what do you do in the case of a sick organization? And yes, organizations can be sick. Many of you have probably had some bad experiences along the way. So this class will help you understand that a little bit. And then finally, you're going to look at the issue of fundraising and funding. This class has historically been known as the grant writing class, but it's not just a grant writing class. However, we do spend a lot of time dealing with the problem of grant writing. Why? First of all, because you will be, out of necessity, an entrepreneur. We don't fund the social services through contracting approaches nearly as much as we should, and we have to deal with that on our own somewhat, and grants become a major way that we deal with that. In addition, when you discuss grant writing, you're also discussing program development, and you as a social worker provide your services largely through programs, so the question becomes, how can you make the program even stronger? So with that in mind, this is what we're going to be doing this semester and how you're going to do it. First of all, there are a number of readings for the class. The class is largely self-directed, not necessarily self-taught, but self-directed, which means that you are responsible for covering the material that is presented to you. And my job is to serve as both a teacher, a lecturer, and a coach. So if there are shortcuts that I can teach you, I'll do this through videos that I provide, through the class notes. And every week, or every module, if you excuse the term there, every module there will be a number of materials that I think are valuable and important for you to cover, both through readings, through my lectures, and through the assignments. So we'll start with the readings. There are formally three texts for the class. The first of these you should have by now, which is the APA guide. The two that are most specifically to the class are Brody's Effectively Managing and Leading Human Service Organizations, which goes deeply into the issue of organizational design, organizational operations, and again, from our standpoint, leadership, which is very important. The final text is the Kettner-Maroney text, Designing and Managing Programs. This is the program development guide that you will find very helpful in the process of developing your grant and your program. There are a number of other readings. The most of them are linked through the syllabus. There are, however, some that are uploaded into the modules in Campus Cruiser. I want to make really clear that we are dependent upon Campus Cruiser. All of the materials will be found in Campus Cruiser or linked through the syllabus, with the exception of these texts, and these you are responsible for. Okay, now everybody's interested in grades. There are two ways we grade this class. One of them is through participation. There are a few what we call discussion assignments. Those will be provided for you both in modules and in the syllabus, and you will be graded. When you do a participation assignment, there are two parts to it. There is your response to a question or to present some material, and then you are to respond to other classmates' materials. So for this, we are largely using the Campus Cruiser again, and I will send an email as to how to find those as we move along. However, all materials are identified within the modules as well. Then assignments. There are 3 written assignments that are due during the course of the semester, but I want to make this very clear. All of them work toward the final submission of a fundable grant. Your main project this semester is to create a grant that is potentially fundable. This does not mean you need to get funded. I'm not going to grade you on that. But you are going to be graded on the quality of the fundable grant. Now, some students in the past have in fact done this and gotten funding for their agencies. Not necessary to get the grade, but it is necessary to do it. Now, what are the 3 assignments? The first of these is what we call an organizational capacity assessment. That's worth 25% of the grade. Grants are not, and this is very critical for the grade, are not submitted by individuals. They are submitted by organizations. So you have to understand the organization that it's coming from. You, of course, are writing it on behalf of an organization. So what you're going to do for this first assignment is you are going to look at the organization that you are writing your grant for. You're going to provide some descriptive materials, a whole lot of descriptive materials about that organization. And then you are going to make some assessments of the readiness of that organization to take on a new project. Now, what's neat about that is sort of twofold. First of all, it gets you thinking about your organization and its needs right away, or at least pretty quickly. And secondly, most of what you write, not all of it, but much of what you write will go directly into your grant proposal. Now, 2 things I want to say about this that I cannot stress enough. First of all, because the grant comes from an organization, nowhere in any material that you submit for evaluations B, C, and D on what you're seeing in front of you, nowhere, anywhere should I see the words I or me. Nowhere. Get points off for that. Because you are doing this on behalf of an organization. Now, you may say we, because the organization, again, is the one submitting it, but nowhere should we see I or me. You're writing it, but you're writing it on behalf of the organization. The second thing I want to say is that you need to identify your organization pretty quick in the semester. Now, what can this organization be? It can be any organization that you are familiar with. It can be your job. It can be a field placement. It can even be a summer job or something that you've had some familiarity with in the past. My preference is for what we call non-profit organizations. I will accept for-profit organizations if that's all you have. That's fine. It's a whole lot easier, though, and there are a lot more grant opportunities for organizations that are non-profit. So you're going to have to start thinking today, pretty quickly anyway, about this organization that you want to write this grant for. And there are a few steps that we'll take when we talk about the assignments in greater detail. Okay. Now, just to finalize that. So, again, maybe 75% of what you write in that organizational capacity assessment, you can put directly into your grant proposal. Not 100%. You don't ever want to say anything negative about your organization. And if your capacity assessment finds something that's a little negative, by all means, don't put that in the grant proposal. But much of it you can. The second written component for the class is actually a part of the grant itself. It's 2 parts of the grant, if you will. The statement of need, where you discuss an unmet need that your organization is going to be addressing through this grant that you're writing. And we'll talk in great detail about that, as well as the organizational capacity assessment a little bit later on. And then your program's proposed goals and objectives. Both of those components will go more or less directly as written into the final proposal. However, I will be giving you feedback on both of those parts, B and C, which you will be able to use then to improve the final proposal. And then the final component is the program proposal itself, which embodies much of assignment B, a fairly substantial part, or all of sections, assignment C there, and they'll all go into that. So, and then at the end of the semester, the final proposal, which contains both parts of B, most of C, and some additional work. So, briefly here, we now have a few comments on the assignments. So the organizational capacity assessments, you're going to start work on this pretty soon. You might want to start thinking about this immediately. And what this means, first of all, is that you've got to find your organization. It could be any organization again, but nonprofit is preferable. We'll talk more about this in another context. And again, most of the content that you're going to be putting into this document is more or less descriptive, and the descriptive content can go more or less intact into the proposal. And I'll show you where when we get to all of that. But do not put any critical findings. And the full assignment and rubric follows. You can take a look at these. We'll talk about them in another context. So, take a look at the next couple slides. Again, any organization, nonprofit, which we call 501c3 or best for reasons we'll talk about later. If you do not have an organization, if you cannot think of one, I can probably help you out, but I'd prefer you to find your own. And then these are the components of the organizational assessment, and what follows are the specific kinds of questions that you need. Note that it is a 5 to 7 page paper. The first component, the second component, the third component literally go almost entirely intact into your proposal. The very last couple of questions there, primary strengths and current challenges, those on the other hand are between you and me and the lamppost. They do not go into the proposal, but we'll talk more about that as we go along. And then you've got your final paper, which is the grant proposal, and we will go over that in some detail in a separate PowerPoint. Okay, I want to say one more thing about the proposal itself. When it's time to actually begin writing this, you may want to start thinking about who you're writing it for. Because just as organizations are the ones that submit it, there are organizations that fund these. So, you have a couple of choices. You can either find and use a real request for proposals. You'll see the word RFP in front of you there, and their application format. And if you do, I will be happy to support you in that, and I will grade you on that. This is if you're doing it for real. The second alternative is to use a standard proposal format, which I have put in the syllabus, which is, and follows in another PowerPoint, which go over what the typical components of a proposal are. So we'll talk about all this in great detail later. Questions? Email, absolute, total, complete, best way to reach me. I check my emails 30 times a day. Odds are pretty good if you email me, I'll get back to you within the hour. I'm on campus Wednesdays and Thursdays, typically from 2 o'clock till 5, more or less. So you're always welcome to come by or make an appointment, preferably by email. And then I do have a Google Voice phone, which I'm having trouble getting to work, but if I can get it to work, we will. So I look forward to working with you. I hope all is well. And this is, again, the first of several of these videos that you will get, and we will proceed. Be well, my friends.